advice and opinions expressed by Dr. Pichet and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice.
Dr. Doreen Pichet, and Dr. Doreen is an expert in autism. Doreen Pichet. Dr. Doreen Pichet. Dr. Doreen Pichet is a visionary in the field of autism. Now you can ask the questions on Ask Dr. Doreen.
Good morning and welcome to Ask Dr. Doreen. I'm Shannon Penrod and I'm here with the fabulous Dr. Doreen Pichet. How are you, Dr. Doreen?
Thank you, Shannon. I'm well, thank you. And hi, everyone. And Shannon, I hope you are well as well.
I am, and I'm excited to be here with you. And I love it when we get to be in person, but I also love it. My favorite thing about not being in person is we get to hear Sunny's voice in the beginning.
Yeah.
That always makes me smile. So that's a good thing. We are doing this long distance this morning, but we are live. It's May the 5th. May the 5th be with you. I'm a day late.
It's Cinco de Mayo.
Right. Yes, absolutely. So thrilled that you guys are here with us and we've got a great topic. We're going to be talking today. Our starting topic is how can ABA help teenagers? Because we've had a lot of questions about this recently, but we'll take questions on any topic, reminding you guys that we're live right now on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, and about a dozen other sites. Our fabulous Chris Desmond is going to show you some different ways that you can connect with the show on the screen. And I'm always reminding you that you can watch us on a bunch of platforms live, or you can watch us recorded on YouTube. There is the wonderful Ask Dr. Doreen YouTube channel, or the show will be podcast wherever you get your podcasts for free. That's sort of any platform that it's free. It's available there for you to download for free. You will find that it will come with advertisements because you're all adults. We know how that works. If you would like to get it ad free, there is a very simple way to do that. For just $5 a month, you can go to glow.fm/autismlive. And when you subscribe for that $5 a month, you get literally everything we do at the Autism Network. You get all the Ask Dr. Doreen's, all the Autism Live, and any live coverage that we do. All of that is available to you. It shows up in your inbox for free with no ads for just $5 a month. So we hope that you guys will participate now. The chat is open. You can be asking questions right now. We'll be checking the chat throughout, but we're going to get started with some questions that have come in the last couple of weeks. Anything that we need to discuss first, Dr. Doreen? There's a lot of stuff going on in the world. We'll see. We'll trip over it, some of it, as we go through this. The first question that we have is my 16-year-old son was recently diagnosed with autism with a 1-2 rating. Already, there are things I want to talk about. I was surprised when we got a recommendation for ABA. What he really needs is help with social skills, flexibility, perspective taking, and anxiety. I'm afraid that ABA will be a waste of time. The recommendation is 8 hours a week. It is expensive, even just paying the copay, and I'm afraid he will be bored. What do you think?
Wow. A lot of stuff in there. Okay, so pretty amazing that his diagnosis is coming at the age of 16. That's really, really rare. And that tells me that he was doing okay, I guess, until now. And then now certain things in his environment have shed light, I guess, on his difficulties. And so now he's struggling with all of these things. I think that it's important because I think people have a preconceived notion about what that ABA is very rote and just for young children. It isn't. ABA is just behavioral psychology. So what it is essentially that you will break down the skills that need to be taught. You can model them or just show them, and then the individual will perform the behavior, and then you will reward it. And therefore, that behavior becomes kind of like a habit. So this could be similar to coaching for sports. your workout trainer, I'm driving instructor. Like, all of these things are behavioral psychology. They show you what to do, you do it, you get rewarded. Yay, you did it, good job. Or some other form of, nowadays there's so much technology that automatically rewards you, diet stuff, anything that you can think in your life that. So ABA is that. Okay, it's essentially based on exactly the same principle, which is operant conditioning. So for your son, you mentioned that there are lots of things that he is struggling with. And I want to write them down because there's a number of different things. I think you said anxiety.
Yep, social skills,
Mhm.
flexibility, perspective taking, and the anxiety.
Flexibility, theory of mind, and what was an anxiety? Okay.
Perspective taking. Yeah.
Right. So all of these there's multiple things you can do with all of these. So we're going to go through them, and this is hopefully going to be very helpful to you. ABA is the basic form. Like, let's say there's going to be really three types. There's going to be three types of things that we do here. One is behavioral psychology, one is cognitive behavioral psychology, and then one is just kind of more generalized psychology, like therapy, like most people know therapy. Okay, so let's start with the ABA. The ABA is where the folks working with him would be teaching the actual skills. So for example, we say social skills. Social skills is not something where you can just take someone and throw them into a crowd and say, hey, good luck, you're going to now develop social skills. It is based on a lot of things. For example, it's based on being able to read people to some extent, right? So, and environments as well. So when you practice social skills, anyone, like typically developing individuals, you go into an environment and you're immediately reading the environment. You may not be consciously aware of it, but you're immediately reading the environment. Is this a place where others are quiet? Maybe I should be quiet. Is this a party place? Maybe I should be more boisterous. Are those people in the corner like looking as uncomfortable perhaps as I am? Maybe I can approach them. Are these folks my age? Maybe they're talking about something of interest to me. There's a million things that we read just from an environment, which help us with regards to how we exhibit social skills. Those specific things have to be taught. So for example, to our kids, because they haven't picked them up naturally. So it's, for example, when you go into an environment, and we call setting, there are these 5 things to pay attention to. Now, let's do that, come back and tell me. So I'm sure that you're actually observing the whole setting, so that I'm sure that you are actually putting the whole setting in one broader vision. So there's a lot of reasons that we have our kids do this exercise. So that's one, is kind of like describing the setting and really understanding the setting. Another one is just describing and understanding how your relationship is different with different people. So for example, some people might be classified as close friends, others would be acquaintances, others would be acquaintances of my parents, others would be strangers, others would be first responders. Everybody is different, and you have a different relationship with them, with their role. And so the second thing would be identifying that maybe the way you talk to a parent is different from the way you talk to a teacher, for example. So all of those things. So that's item 2, is really understanding people and the people in your environment. Now that is a really, really complex one, because the people are constantly changing. So you could have a parent and you've already learned a way to interact with the parent, but today the parent is having a really rough day. So now you have to be sure to really understand how to deal with sad parent, happy parent, excited parent. Same thing with teacher. Maybe you can tell your teacher is unhappy today for some reason. And you have to be able to start inferring from their facial expression, from the words they use, how are they feeling, and possibly what are some things that could lead to this. Now, a lot of us are not very good at this. A lot of us have, like, our weaknesses, our own issues jump into these inferences. So, someone might be having a rough day and you approach them and you might immediately think, oh my God, I must have done something wrong. And that is the psychology of human beings and how we can mess with ourselves. We can cause anxiety and stress just by the things we think. So it's very important to try to get the basics right. These are the settings, these are the people, and this is essentially the context, right? So that's the kind of stuff you learn and get to practice in ABA. Part of that, by the way, is learning to see things from other people's perspective, which is what your son is struggling with. That's what we call theory of mind. That is a clear deficit that occurs across a lot of our kids with autism, and it's not impossible to teach. It's quite possible to teach your child to overcome that, but it takes a little bit of practice. We have lots and lots of exercises to help the individual understand what someone else is thinking, what someone else is desiring, what someone else believes is going to be different than my beliefs, my thoughts, my wishes, etc. And so that's kind of exercises that you do inside ABA, and you get good at those. Now, where does cognitive therapy come in? Cognitive behaviors, flexibility, by the way, is also part of that. Like all of these things we do teach in ABA. For example, flexibility might be the individual's always wants a certain routine. By the way, when you have flexibility issues, very, very often they are causing the anxiety. Very, very often, being inflexible means you're trying to control your environment. And if someone messes with that inflexibility, it causes anxiety. It's sort of like OCD, obsessive compulsive behavior. So anyway, but there are ways that you can gradually teach flexibility. So like, the reason that, for example, it's a really good example. I catch it in myself. I have zero sense of direction, Shannon, zero. Let me tell you, I check into a hotel room and I can stay there for 5 days. And every single time I come out of my room, I don't know where the elevator is. I don't know if I should just go left or right. It's insane. Like, honestly, my kids laugh about it, but I am unable to know. I'm lost in the world, which is kind of an interesting thing. So, but because of that, every time that I go through this experience, I realize that I memorize paths because I have this lack of ability to know where I am. And if I change the path, it makes me anxious. The reason that I memorize paths is because it gives me a sense of control over this inability to have a sense of direction. So we all do that, all of us. We know our own weaknesses or frailties, and we produce patterns that help us get over those, get through those. Like, I'm gonna go to work this path, because if I go to work another path, I'll probably get lost. And so you insist on this path. And with our kids, we gradually expose them to some change. And that helps a lot with their flexibility, moving away from those control situations. So all of these things, there are exercises in ABA, but when you're talking about anxiety has to do with having thoughts that produce a physical sensation that we call anxiety, okay? And the best way to deal with anxiety is cognitive behavior therapy. And cognitive behavior therapy teaches you to become aware of your thoughts, and then helps you categorize your thoughts so that you start to see that they're ridiculous, so that you start to recognize that what you're thinking is causing anxiety. It's not really the situation. So for instance, You wake up in the morning and you're like, oh, I have a crazy schedule today. And you immediately start thinking, oh my gosh, I'm going to fail at this. I'm not prepared enough for this. These people are not going to, this is going to, and these are just your thoughts. You are producing a catastrophe out of nothing. And your thoughts then start to cause your heart to race. And you're like, I don't want, and most people then avoid the situation. And so for our kids, a lot of times the social environment causes them anxiety because they've had difficulty in it already. So, for example, they've been in a social environment where others are moving too fast. It's very hard for them to understand what's going on around them because their language isn't quite there. Or people are exhibiting all kinds of emotions that our child can't figure out. What are these? They can't read those inferences that I was talking about. Those, they're not good at it, right? Those and things are changing, so it's like you have to be flexible. Like 1 minute we're gonna go to this restaurant, but now a friend says no, let's go somewhere else, and you have to be like, okay, sure. And you have to adjust all the time, and you have to read a lot of things, and there's lots of environmental stimulation, and all of this stuff then causes you to think you're going to fail, and then it's a cycle, and then for sure you fail. So it's about like teaching you how to change your thoughts, and it's about gradual exposure, and it's about teaching a lot of skills. So the more you have skills, the less something is going to feel difficult to you. And then you can practice that scenario, and then you will be able to succeed in it. And really, all of those things that this parent listed, that's all you need. You need to teach the skills. You need to do gradual exposure for your son so that he is not thrown into a difficult situation. And then you need a therapist who's a CBT therapist, cognitive behavior therapist, to just help him understand that his anxiety starts to get high when he thinks the wrong things, and how to like move his thoughts to a positive self-image.
Man, but I learned so much from you. But I just want to go back and reference for this mom who is concerned that it wouldn't be right for her child. I hope you heard all of the things that Dr. Grant-Pichet talked to you about with ABA, but then also all the great advice she gave you about cognitive behavioral therapy too. I mean, you got a twofer, which is wonderful.
But I do want to say, Shannon, that I always talk about this as if like I'm the one doing the treatment. Mm-hmm. And the truth is, you're going to encounter people in the ABA world who are not knowledgeable about all of this. And you are going to encounter people who might tell you, we have to sit down and memorize something, like do a rote version of ABA, which isn't appropriate for your child. So make sure it's not about the technique, it's more about the content. Make sure that whoever you work with in ABA knows how to teach perspective taking, knows how to teach flexibility, because these are very advanced things, and you use the same techniques as ABA, but do they have a curriculum that goes that high?
And if they don't, I mean, obviously the skills for autism and skills for living programs, which are the curricula, are available for a low monthly cost.
Right.
People can go to skillsforautism.com to find out more about that.
Right.
Excuse me. Inhaled wrong. Pardon me. But I do want to address this one part that she said that they're afraid that their child, their teenager will be bored. And I am 100% sure that you could teach all of the things that you just talked about and make it boring. Mm-hmm. But I'm also 100% sure that you could teach it. And if you understood good teaching techniques and good ABA, that you could make it very fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so obviously you want to be with people who are seeing it that way.
Yes, absolutely. So I think this individual was 16.
Yes.
Yeah. So I think it's very important also to make sure that your son himself wants this and also sees the connection. So this is no longer a child where you are just saying, we have to learn this. It's important that you ask him, what do you want? What's difficult for you? And I guarantee you, every 16-year-old boy will want friends, even maybe wants girlfriends. And I think it then becomes important to teach your son, okay, that's our end goal. It's not called, perspective taking. It's not called like social skills or getting rid of your anxiety. It's called having friends. And in order to have friends, we have to make sure you can also take their perspective. We have to make sure you are comfortable in social situations, et cetera, et cetera. You have to be flexible. All of these things will lead you to the thing you want, which is having friends. Because otherwise, like, there is no, at the age of 16, you can't really say like, oh, I'm going to give you like food reinforcers, or I'm going to give you a token. Those things aren't reinforcing. A lot of it's self-reinforcement at the age of 16, so it has to be connected. I had a parent, an old parent of a very, very intelligent young man that I treated many, 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 many years ago. Just emailed me the other day, and she was saying, could you help me like figure out how to get him to have better hygiene, because like he really wants to have a relationship, but this kind of stuff it was actually a bunch of other stuff. So it was more like, I think at this stage, like if he wants a wife, he probably needs to learn to do chores and cook and all this kind of stuff. And I was like, well, I mean, he's so intelligent, he can learn those things online. It's a matter of just making sure this is his motivation. Like for him to understand that if you want a wife, you're probably going to have to get better at these things, that it's connected. And then he will definitely be able to teach him those things because he's just brilliant. So, it's a matter of like really, it's the same for us, right? It's kind of like when you go to the gym one day, you have to remind yourself, I'm doing this because whatever your reason may be.
Yeah, but I didn't mean to laugh so hard when you said that you have no sense of direction. But I have to tell you how much like, I don't know, freedom and joy it gives me knowing, because I think of you as being the most capable person on the face of the earth. And so when you tell me that you have no sense of direction, I go, okay, well,
oh my gosh.
But then the next thing that you explained was how you process that and mitigate that so that you are capable, which I just think is very interesting. It's like you have a bag of skills and you're applying them with yourself. It's just exactly what you
but
do.
Everybody does, right? It's everybody
but
does.
We don't. This is the thing. Many of us didn't learn that.
Hmm.
And I think that's the difference between you and a lot of people. And I think it's the difference now of people bringing their children into ABA, because we weren't taught that.
Yeah.
When was that high school class or that
right.
or that graduate school class, unless you got it from your parents, where was the class for them?
That's true. It's true. One day I'll tell you all the different things I do for getting lost. It's insane. Like nobody can talk to me when I'm checking into a hotel, because I'm constantly putting mnemonic devices in my head about the things I'm seeing until I get to my room. Isn't that funny?
It's like, that's a skill.
I mean, it's just hilarious.
When I'm explaining to parents, parents ask me a lot of times when I'm someplace, they'll ask me, can you explain autism to their younger sibling? I don't know why I get asked that all the time. But I used to bring up computers. Now I bring up phones. And I say, you know how there's an Android phone and there's an iPhone? And, what's the iPhone good at? And a 4-year-old can tell me now, which is shocking. Yeah. But a 4-year-old can tell me what an iPhone does better than an Android. Yeah. And I say, but they're both good. What's the difference? They work on different processors.
Right.
But if an iPhone is better at shooting a movie, what's the app I can put on the Android to make it so it's better at shooting a movie? And I'm telling you, maybe a 5-year-old, they'll tell me what the app is. Yeah. And And I look at you, and what you do is you're just downloading apps all the time for yourself and others that, like, oh, you're struggling with this, let me download this app for you, which will help you to be able to do the thing you want to do.
Yeah.
It's very elegant, but I don't think about you doing that for yourself.
Oh yeah, it's hilarious.
And you just come off as being so capable. So I just learned something, and it's very exciting to me.
Yeah, it's hilarious.
Because that makes me feel like we could all be more capable if we just think of it that way. If we don't get like, oh, well, I suck at that.
Yeah.
I'm not good at that. Or I see sometimes that parents with kids with autism their child will just engage in a behavior that really has nothing to do with autism, but they're engaging in the behavior, and the parent will throw up their hands and go, oh, autism. And I'm like, no, no, that's not autism. And that behavior does not have to, like, literally taking food off of other people's plates.
Yeah.
It's not that where in the diagnosis of autism does it say that? It is a lack of perspective taking and a lack of understanding what the social rules are, which can be taught.
Yeah.
So download the app. Okay, I'm going to move on to another question, but that was very exciting. I learned all kinds of things. My child is 12. He is nonverbal and very impacted. We tried ABA years ago and just weren't seeing a difference. When the shutdown happened, we gave it up. Now at 12, we are seeing aggression skyrocketing. Is ABA something that could help with that? I know you will ask, but we were never successful with using an iPad. He points for communication. I know. Everybody take a breath, and everybody gets a hug. This is hard. Yeah. I see all the time now how shutdown, gummed things up.
Yeah.
I'm very aware.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And this is why, right before the show, I was telling you I was just venting because, a new regulation is passing where a particular health insurance company is restricting what we can do again. And all of these kind of state restrictions or payer restrictions, so on, lead to situations that remind me of the period during COVID. They make it hard for us to do the things we have to do to be effective. And then what happens is parents will get ineffective ABA, and then they will turn away from it until something bad happens, which is now the child is aggressive, and so it just breaks my heart because I see the cycle from the very beginning. This is why I'm doing this evaluation in an hour, yes, because I just kind of want to help this family make sure they don't go in the wrong path. Yeah. So basically, yes, of course, ABA can help with aggression. It's a little bit harder because a lot of times, even us, I feel like our behavior techs are not capable of handling 12-year-olds who have a lot of aggression, because most of our behavior techs are like young girls, and a 12-year-old boy who has a lot of aggression might outpower them, right? And that's dangerous for everyone. So, but nevertheless, a good ABA program absolutely can handle aggression, because aggression is, all it is your child expressing their frustration or inability to communicate in a socially inappropriate way. So that's what it is. So all challenging behaviors are communication to begin with. They're not appropriate communication. They're the worst way to communicate. But this is a nonverbal child. So even though he can point to things, he can only really point to things that are visible in his environment that he wants. So his communication is extremely limited. Like, think, what does he do if he wants to, go to visit grandma? What does he do if he wants a food item that isn't in the house? What does he do if he's feeling sick? How does he communicate with you that he's tired? How does he communicate that he's lonely or that he wants the other video game, not the one you have? It's so limited to point. So when you must, so one of the way we deal with aggression, like any other challenging behavior, is that we replace it with a more appropriate form of communication, first of all. So the way to do that, though, is to make sure he has a form of communication. And so the very first step for your child would be teaching him to communicate. And everyone has concluded that OG devices are the best. The reason is that they're more readily taught than sign, and sign limits the child to only people who can read sign. But with the OG devices, pretty much everyone can communicate with him and everyone can understand what he wants. You can, his teacher can, others in his environment, everyone can, because it's an OG device that either types out or vocalizes or shows an icon, right? So everyone can interpret what he wants. So you must do that. And actually, Shannon, if they write in, or if you have that parent's information, you should please refer them to Sucho, who is doing this independently now, a very good friend of ours and old Cardian, and she is a master of teaching how to use an OG device. She is a master at it. So she will organize with you, teach anyone else who's working with him, his teachers, aides, whatever, to have him start communicating. This is very important. Once he starts to communicate, automatically the aggression will go down a little bit. But let's remember, he's learned to use aggression as a form of communication. It's like if when you're a baby and or a younger child and you hit and you grab a toy, and if you consistently are successful, that the message that you're getting is hitting and grabbing is a very useful and effective form of communicating what I want. So that individual doesn't learn to say, could I please have that? Because it's easier to just hit and grab, okay? So in your child's situation, they've learned aggression. Aggression is a way I communicate. Now, I don't know, but you will, if you work with a BCBA or behavior analyst, you will tell them when aggression occurs. It occurs whenever he wants something that he can't have. It occurs whenever, I don't know, he's overstimulated. It occurs whenever he wants to go out and we don't let him. It occurs when he has a schedule that he doesn't like, whatever it is. And in the BCBA working with you then through this question and observation does what's called a functional behavior assessment. So they determine what is he actually trying to communicate with his aggression. Could be a number of things. So it could be that every time he wants an object, he aggresses. So that's called the tangible. He wants a tangible object and he's aggressing. It could be that every time he's in an environment he doesn't like, he becomes aggressive, like in a classroom. That's called escape. That's a function. So what he would be saying is, I want out of here, or I want that object. So you have the BCBA helps you figure that out. And once that's figured out, the key to dealing with aggression is, I'm not letting you have what you want when you aggress, but I'm definitely letting you have what you want when you use your communication device. So that's why the communication, the OG device, or whatever you choose, has to come at the same time or even before. He must have another form of communication so that he is taught to use that instead of aggressing. Otherwise, his aggression is just because he's frustrated because he can't get the things he wants. So it's a little bit difficult. I simplified it. In theory, teaching it is hard, but again, and let me just tell you, it's harder now that he's 12 instead of when he was 6, but it will be much harder if you don't deal with it now and wait until he's 18. So
Yeah.
let's go. We are where we are, deal with it now, find a really good ABA provider who's willing. This is where you get a lot of insurance coverage. You will get a lot of help. This is exactly what ABA is meant for.
Yeah. The next question that we have, my daughter is 15 years old. She has been quirky, but there was no language delay. So we didn't even consider autism. Now, though, we really are seeing how much she is struggling. She has total meltdowns when anything changes. She has siblings, but has never been able to have a good friend. Now, with hormones on board and school being different, she is having a tough time. Her counselor has recommended we have her evaluated for autism. After all this time, could that be it? She was always talking as a kid. She learned her numbers and letters early and would recite them obsessively. She read early. If she is diagnosed, what therapy would we look into?
That's awesome. You know, that's so, and this might be very similar to the 16-year-old that we were talking about as well. This is what happens pretty frequently. I should write something about this because this happens so often that the child's basic skills are present, so no one detects the autism until it becomes problematic. So it's kind of like, I bet you this child has similar issues than that the other mom, who, by the way, we didn't even comment on how astute the other mom was, or the other dad who wrote, you know, he doesn't have perspective taking, and
Yes.
that's pretty amazing to identify those issues. And I bet you it's a similar situation here. So what happens is the child has basic language, and none of these problems occur or become evident when they're younger. But as they get into more and more sophisticated age ranges, where friendships are based on a lot of, you know, perspective taking, flexibility, inhibition of one's own thoughts and ideas. I mean, like, you know, as teens, friendship is like a juggling act. Like, there's a million different things. You have to be aware of your friends' thoughts and desires, and at the same time you have to stand up for your own. At the same time you have to, like, you know, be able to handle bullies at the same. I mean, it's an insane period of life. And it a lot of times, especially our girls, it shows up in their teen years. It shows up then. But some of the things you just told me are so typical of very, very intelligent young autistics, which is things like, oh, she taught herself the alphabet and numbers or whatever very young, and she was, you know, routinely repeating them, that sort of stuff. That is all the brilliant side of autism, let's put it that way. And so, yes, I think that it would be probably important to get a diagnosis. Right now, her diagnosis would be ASD, probably with a very low severity, so 1-1. Maybe it might, I mean, even if she gets the diagnosis, but it would be important to do that. And then I think, depending on, again, it's very similar to the answer I gave earlier for the other individual. You would do some assessments that would help identify exactly where she needs help. So it's not like just saying, oh, I want to, you know, it's funny, it's like she has difficulty with no friends and change. Very similar to the other individual. But it's like, so it could be similar things. It could be different things. Like, maybe she has very good perspective taking, but she has an extreme level of anxiety in social situations because she's very sensory sensitive. I don't know. Could be that she's not sleeping well, and this is causing to her heightened level of anxiety. But there's some anxiety there because she's resistant to change, and she doesn't have friends. And in order to get there, in order to get to those bigger goals, you have to determine what are the areas that she's really needs to work on, right? And those are assessments. Like, that is only done through assessment. Now, we have a ridiculously long assessment called the skills assessment, which will identify those weaknesses for sure. It'll take a lot of time from you as a parent answering those, but that's on skills online. You can do that. But there are other assessments as well out there, like social skills tests, assessments of social skills, or even assessments that have to do with things like specifically focused on inhibition and similar to ADHD tests. There are specific tests. And so the people who either you can go online, you can actually these days, I mean, with all the AI that's out there, this is what I would do initially. I would probably go to Claude and I would say, what are the assessments out there? I need to assess my child who is 16 and has these issues, or however old this child was. It 16, this one as well?
15. I think she's 15.
Yeah, I have these issues and I want to assess and determine what possible things are leading to the difficulty to have friends. And it'll ask you a ton of questions and you can answer all those questions. You can also ask it to give you psychologists who are near you who can do this kind of assessment. It helps with all of that. But I think it starts with assessing and determining exactly what the core skills are that need to be taught. Once those are taught, then it's a matter of putting it into practice. In your case, I don't know, because remember, again, with the other answer I was giving, content skills can be taught through ABA. If it's a matter of changing thoughts, because the thoughts are the ones that are causing her to fail, that's more cognitive behavior therapy. So it's sort of a combination of those. And I failed to mention something very important also for the other individual. Sometimes our anxiety becomes so high that we're not willing to put in the time and the effort or ever be exposed to that kind of situation because we just have such a heightened level of anxiety. Okay, so what happens in those scenarios? You should consult and potentially consider anti-anxiety medication, because everybody worries, a lot of people worry about giving their child medication, but let me tell you, it is 1,000 times more important for your child to have the right medication for anxiety than not. Because I am also, and I don't want to scare anyone, but I'm also on the other side of children, teenagers, very, very, very minimally affected teenagers who have not been helped medically, and their anxiety becomes depression and suicidal behavior. And it is important to give the individual all the support. And sometimes just ABA or cognitive behavior therapy on their own is not enough. And so you must do, every study in the world shows that a combined behavioral and medical is the most effective. So I just, depending on your individual child's situation, please assess, but if it's very, very severe at this point, also consider medical intervention.
There we go. Thank you so much for saying that. Can I tell you too, because you said we're seeing so many of these kids where they slide through and we catch it in the teenage years. Can I tell you what I'm seeing an epidemic of? That I find, I'm talking to parents a lot, and I talk to more moms than dads. But when I'm talking to the moms, a very frequent thing that I will hear is the mom saying that the dad is in some form of denial about the child's diagnosis, some form of denial about the fact that they need any kind of intervention. And upon closer inspection, I've started now saying, has that dad, because of this, has this dad ever been evaluated for autism? And 9 times out of 10, I am told that, in fact, the doctor has recommended that they get an evaluation. Wow. That the dads, and that this is part of the perspective taking of them looking at their child who is having trouble with social skills, and that parent is saying, but that's normal because they also had difficulties with social skills. And they're saying they don't need an intervention because I got through. And a lot of these dads, it's very interesting. Temple Grandin would have a field day with this. A lot of them are engineers. They're at the top of their field. They're very technically minded. They managed to get through college. They managed to find a girl who thought that they were the cat's pajamas and have kids together. But they are like the mom will say, change anything, and my husband, can't get to work, can't do their job, can't function because that's the way they're wired. And I see so much of that right now, Doreen.
Oh yeah, oh absolutely. But across the board also, Shannon, like if you think about, we know there are individuals who are like billionaires and who are very
Yes.
much on the spectrum. They've stated it themselves. They don't suffer because what happens is when you're a billionaire, you automatically get girls anyway. You know what I mean? I mean, like, I'll be honest, they don't experience these issues because of some other thing that they accomplished. And so, but if you think about it, like a lot of our kids who are just absolutely brilliant, and I have several who, in the old days would say they're recovered, but they are struggling with social skills. And so the reason that I often wonder to myself, is it a positive thing or a negative thing that we continue to call this autism? Because it doesn't really fit all the symptom criteria. It's just a person who struggles with significant social skills due to perspective taking and so on. So,
I'm with you.
it's different, right? And
Yes.
ABA is not 100% right in a lot of those cases, and cognitive behavior therapists are not familiar enough with autism. So there's this gap for these kids, like just not quite understanding what needs to happen to help them.
Yeah, I wish they all had time with you. I got to rush because we got more questions and we got to leave on time. Is 18 too late to start ABA? It wasn't something we could afford when my son was diagnosed. Is it too late to start? He has some language, but no conversation.
No, absolutely not at all too late to start. It depends on what you're trying to accomplish. If your child still has language issues, this is where you should be. So 100% it's the right time. There's people, it's important to understand that ABA is not just for young kids. I think there's a misunderstanding that that's the case. It's not. In fact, I remember our old friend Jonathan always used to say that there are probably 10,000 times more published research for adults using ABA than there are for young kids. It's just that those are all focused. They're focused on gaining one skill or another.
Absolutely. My 17-year-old has gotten a prescription for ABA. His younger brother had intensive ABA years ago, but he was 3 to 5 years old. It worked a miracle with the younger brother. He's doing well now in junior high with minimal support, but his brother has this very specific memory of ABA being something for a child. I've tried to explain to him that it will be different for him, but the truth is, I don't know what it will look like. Is he right? Is it more for little kids? What should I say to him to get him to try it?
Yeah.
It's exactly what you were just talking about.
Yeah, it's exactly what we were just talking about. And I think, it's a misconception. And also, like, you don't really even want to call it ABA if your child is going to be inflexible about it and like not even want to try it. So you can call it behavioral psych. It's the same thing. So it's a matter of, and if your child is that unaffected, let's say that he's affected by the name, like his understanding level seems to be very high, then maybe take him to a cognitive behavior therapist. But the bottom line is that it would definitely help to have ABA, and always remember ABA is more focused on the skills. And once you have the skills, then a lot of the stuff that we even do at the very higher level of our curriculum is cognitive behavior therapy. So we teach the skill, and then we teach the individual how to use the skill and how to think about the skill.
All right, I'm going to slide one more in here. I would like my 19-year-old to do ABA, but he is not conserved. Will I be able to talk to the team and make recommendations on what they should work on? What happens if he refuses to go? 19 years old, not conserved.
Yeah, this is exactly what I was talking about also earlier, which is when you're looking at teens, and especially teens approaching adulthood, it's not like you can go in and say, you need to do X, Y, and Z. You need to find what they are motivated about. What is their goal in life? What is, if you have a 19-year-old and they are not having friends because they're not able to take turns, or because they have bad hygiene, or because they can't understand other people's feelings, or whatever it is, if they don't care about having friends, there's nothing you can do. But if they care about making more friends, then you have to just make them see that these are the things that your friends need. It's like, this is what you have to do in order to have friends. This is why I wrote that book, which is just intended for teens. A lot of we have these amazing social skills groups now at CARD, which, Shannon, I don't know if you've ever listened in.
Yes, the other day at a center, I got to listen in for a minute, and I didn't want to, be too obtrusive, but it was amazing.
Did you get a young group or an older group?
They were like 10, 11, and 12.
Oh my God. You have to please, if you ever have time, ask Laura to send you the recording of the groups that she does for, like, 16. I think she has one that's like 18 to 25 or something.
Oh, wow.
They melt my heart. Like, I
Yeah.
cannot even tell you. And the number one issue that comes up a lot in their group is like how to have a date, like how to. So I was listening to some of these, and it was just teaching me so much. And so I ended up writing this book, which is called How to Date Without Being Awkward, Overwhelming, or Invisible. Right? A practical guide for neurodiverse young adults with social anxiety. Yeah. And that's the book that we're trying to get published now, because it's written for the individual. It's not written for their parents or something. It's written for the individual so that they can, like, really assess just the stuff I was talking about. It's like, what's your setting? Are you identifying the people correctly, and the mood, and the energy, and like, what's your goal? And also, like, when you get into dating, like, just not thinking that you're always going to fail, like resetting your mind and making sure that, like, dating is just dating. It's going out and having fun with someone. It's not like your whole life. So, like, it's all about that. So, but it's so cool to see so many of our young adults just coming to us and getting this group environment where they're just sharing I would say, honestly, a lot of what we do in group for our minimally affected adults is more cognitive behavior therapy than ABA.
But when you're 19, and if for people who don't know, there's a conserving process that has, I don't know, like 21 different things that you can conserve. But if you have not conserved a 19-year-old in terms of their medical, then you're not privy to what is being done medically. You don't get a say unless they sign a disclosure that they're allowed to talk to you. Right. And also at 19, if they're not conserved, if they say they don't want ABA, you can't. I agree with you.
Yeah. Well, you can't unless there's a way to get forceful conservatorship, but then it's not a pleasant process, because you kind of have to prove that they're unable to take care of themselves. But if you want to look at potentially just being a responsible parent who's going to be part of the child's life forever and decisions, conservatorship needs to happen before age of 18. Yeah. And at that stage, it's not a huge deal. But we're past that point with this one family, and I'm suggesting maybe just, we tend to make our kids defensive by pushing them very hard. So don't do that. Just try to see if the individual is able to identify their own issues and how they relate to a lack of skills that, and that's what they get taught in ABA, CBT, whatever else.
And I, it goes back to what you were saying about it's got to be reinforcing for them. I will tell you the one story that sticks out to me, shortly after I came to work at CARD, there was a kiddo who was like 15, 16 years old, And we had a person who was going to meet with the parents and talk with the parents, but they met with the 15-year-old, 16-year-old, and they talked about what all of them wanted from this, right? And it was very interesting because the parents were saying, their room is a mess. They're not handing their work in on time. They're just a mess, and all these things. But then when they talked to the kiddo was like, I just want time to draw. They were very interested in drawing. So what I loved was the person who was dealing with the case saw clearly that their room was such a mess that they weren't actually able to draw. So they said, okay, how about this? What if we were to set up your room in a way so that we made a place for everything so that you would have a place to draw?
Yeah.
And so the kid was like, oh, that's what I want.
Yeah, that works. Yeah.
Right. And so the person said, okay, so we're going to set up your desk. We're not going to worry about everything else in your room. We're just going to set up your desk, and we're going to set up. They picked out a caddy together for all of their pens and everything. And there was a place for their paper and, a place to put designs that were finished, whatever. And that's all they did was they set that up and said, now you have that. Well, the parents called them and said, you need to come back to the house tomorrow. Mm-hmm. And the person came back to the house and they said, what did you do? Yeah. Because their room is spotless. Yeah. Because what they had learned from making a space for everything, and they could easily sit down and draw, they were like, ooh, I like this so much better. So they had organized their entire room in a 24-hour period. Exactly. I love that. Because it was a benefit for them. If that person had gone in and said, I'm going to teach you how to clean your room, we would have lost an artist. Yeah, 100%. The child would have been defensive, would be pushing back. Absolutely. Well, anyway, we're about out of time, but I want to acknowledge that Michelle said, happy Cinco de Mayo, happy Taco Tuesday. It's Cinco de Mayo and Taco Tuesday. Oh. What we all need to have for dinner. Dr. Grant-Bichet, you are amazing. Shannon, I always learn so much from you.
I love you. Thank you so much.
I love you more, always. So absolutely incredible, but I know you have things you got to go do. So I'm releasing you back into the wonderful world that you had created, and we will see you next week. Everybody, tomorrow on the show, Alex Lynn is going to be here with us. A wonderful self-advocate. We got a lot to talk about, including his Autism Rocks concert. I think this is like the 8th or 9th version of it that's coming up. So that's tomorrow. But amazing guests coming up. I just want to tease that a week from tomorrow, we're having Tori and Victoria. You heard us tell the story before about the young man who got the ROTC scholarship to go to college, and they took it away from him because of his diagnosis. Well, there is a new ending to this story that's going to blow everybody's socks off. He's going to be here with us next week. He is graduating like this week from college, and wait till you hear where he's going to work. This has the perfect Cinderella ending. Yay. So that's in a week. All right. Until then, give your kiddos a hug from me and one for you too. Bye-bye for now.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you, Dr. Grant-Bichet. Bye-bye. Don't forget, you can watch Ask Dr. Doreen live every Tuesday morning at 10 a.m. Pacific time. We hope to see you there.